the tax deadline is a-creeping.
Yep, CPA Crystal Faulker from MCM CPAs and Advisors is here again this morning with us. And some of the most common mistakes taxpayers make. Before we get to this, I just have a question because we were talking about how hard it is. Why are taxes so complicated? Why do they have to make it so hard for us?
Well, if you ever really took a look at the tax law, you'd see that there's this many pages.
Yeah.
So there's rules, but there's always exceptions to exceptions, and that's what makes everything hard.
Subsection A of Part B
right.
of, subsection F and whatnot.
It's like a foreign language.
But we're getting to the point now where sometimes it's not those really, really complex issues, but pretty common, almost easy mistakes that people make. What are some of the most common ones you see?
Well, probably seems very obvious to most people, but just simple calculation errors. Picking up the wrong numbers from all those 1099s and W-2s, certainly making sure you're choosing the number from one form to the next. If you don't do that correctly, it's going to delay your refund, even cost you money. So as you mentioned earlier, there's so many simple, easy to use tax softwares out there that can really alleviate those headaches.
What could cause a problem with your direct deposit, Crystal?
Again, picking up the wrong account number.
Okay.
If you put the wrong account number, the IRS is not going to know where to put your refund, and certainly direct deposit is the fastest way to get the refund, but only if you put the right numbers on the form.
Way.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to screw that
And missing
one
a
up.
tax break is common too,
Absolutely. So many people just don't know the rules. So if you aren't taking advantage of all the deductions and credits, it's not like the IRS is going to call you up and say, hey, by the way, you missed one.
Yeah,
so
we owe you this money.
Make sure you understand the rules to minimize your total taxes.
A lot of times, something in my life is much different this year than it was last year. Had a major life change sort of affect
Yes,
things.
marriage, divorce, children. Make sure that you're taking advantage of all of the name change. So the name change, that's the issue there. So if you have a name change, it's important that whatever you put on your tax return and your Social Security number matches the Social Security number administration. Because if you don't, it's going to delay the refund. Also, all of those 1099s, as we were talking about earlier, you have to make sure you include them on your return. If you had a sideline job, maybe some independent consulting, if you don't put that income, the IRS will actually send you a nice little notice and say, hey, by the way, you failed to report that, plus here's some interest and taxes, penalties.
I don't like those kind of notices.
What about filing status? You always have to file the same unless you had a divorce or a marriage.
That's what a lot of people think, Sheila, but they're actually married filing separate, married filing jointly, or had a household.
Okay.
Don't just assume that you use the same one for last year. If you had a life change, figure it out the different ways and take advantage of the best method for you.
Okay.
All right, a few other maybe common ones. Any other things out there we should be keeping in mind here as the clock is ticking?
Well, the stock market was up and down last year. So if you sold one of your favorite stocks when the market was down thinking you're going to get a tax deduction but turned right around and bought it back, it's called a wash sale. You're not allowed to take that deduction.
Okay.
Also, the IRA, individual retirement account, this is one of those things that you actually can have a do-over if you didn't take the deduction last year.
Okay.
You can actually make an IRA contribution up until April 18th and still take the deduction on your tax return last year. And one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is that if they don't have the money to pay the tax, they don't file. They put their head in the sand.
Right.
So that's a big no-no. You ought to at least file the return and try to enter into an installment method agreement to pay the tax to the IRS.
All right, Crystal, thank you so much.
Good to see you again. It's